to overcome the birth trauma enacted in similar forms. This is what you were just saying.
Mm-hmm.
The only essential difference being that the civilized human being, and still more the artist, can reproduce this objectively in manifold, strictly determined forms, fixed by the primal trauma, whilst the neurotic is compelled again and again to produce it in a similar way, only on his own body.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When I read this, I was sitting there and I'm like, I remember Michael saying, you know, strong of birth, but don't read it. You know? And I'm like, no, I gotta read it. Then I read that quote and I put the book down. I was like, wait a minute. Only on his own body? Oh, shit. Tattoos, piercings, implants, mutilation, circumcision, female genital mutilation, torture porn, nailed on a cross in a movie, and on and on and on. Then you know what happened to Freddie Mercury, and then read the lyrics of this song called Get Down, Make Love. Right? Or Peter Gabriel, what happened to him as a child. Ozzy Osbourne. Right? Ozzy Osbourne was teetering on the edge of becoming completely insane. And the music was the only thing that saved him. And then who did he marry? Who did he get together with? Right? Basically a witch. Right? His wife. That stuff. And you go on and on and on. And you just sit there, you take that thing, go into a museum, look at the painting. Go take that thing and now go and read all the lyrics from the wall. And take that into Roger Waters' life. And start analyzing. Take
What would
that
you say
quote.
about how this all applies to what we're learning with all this Epstein stuff and the horrible things with children and all the Ted Gunderson stuff? Like that's just like an extreme form of this projection of abuse, right, on these kids.
Exactly.
And it's on the bodies, the abuse, right?
Yes. Right. That's, I mean, you can take that quote and just take it everywhere. Take it into movies, each character that's being portrayed. Who sat down and wrote this, wrote the scripts? Why do we even make movies, you know, like Saw? And it wasn't just one, right? It was Saw, what, 6, whatever. And isn't that just a repeat, Michael, of what you read with Eric Neumann? Isn't that just the same thing?
Yeah. And you can add overweight to your list.
Yeah, exactly.
Picking out no reason why, and then nobody speaks against it. They even went to the length of saying you're fat shaming people. This is a sign of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Look how irrational that was.
Exactly. And you go on and on and on. I took that quote and said, okay, how did I treat my body? What happened to me? Now let's take this even further with state-dependent memory. Let's say you are a child, you grow up, you learn an instrument, a guitar, piano, whatever it is, or you draw, you paint. But in that moment, you were doing this as an escape of what you went through as a child. You were in your room playing the guitar, doing the piano, doing the painting, just to not be downstairs with the parents. Or escaping from the school. Hey, teachers, leave us kids alone, right? And then, life happens and you don't play the guitar anymore. You don't paint anymore because, you have to, make a living, whatever. And then later on, you're thinking, I want to play the guitar again. And you go over, you take the guitar in your hand, you start up, and you can't produce one single freaking note. And you're procrastinating and you're procrastinating and you're procrastinating. Right? And you're always wondering what procrastination really is. What if procrastination is nothing more that you don't want to go back to that memory that you had that's stored in your body? Because you're picking up the guitar and you're playing one note. Because that's what it is. Right, all of a sudden you're done. The body says, I can't do this anymore. Every time you pick up the guitar, you play the piano, whatever it is, you're reminding me on the time when you were, whatever, 10, 12. And you can't anymore, right? The nervous system just doesn't have the capacity anymore to deal with it. But the interesting thing is that that instrument is the way out of it, if you know how to do it. And that process is called titration. I just play one note, see how you feel. Play one song, put the guitar back down. And then start again. Create now a different state, a different memory with the instrument. And now you can slowly deprogram yourself. But it takes discipline and you have to do it all the time. And sometimes you have to do it for like 5, 6, 7 years. Because if your trauma is in the bones, that's how long it takes to change bone. If you have been really, really abused and beaten, it gets down into your bone structure. The bones have the memory of it. That's how deep that stuff goes. And some people that went through somatic therapy, like all of a sudden after like 6, 7 years, they're like, oh, something has really changed. Yeah, because you have a new bone structure. Right? That's how deep that stuff goes.
I can vouch for exactly what you're saying. It's kind of blowing me away because I went through this exact same thing with piano. When I was a kid and I never learned to read music, my parents tried to sign me up for piano lessons and it didn't really work out. But I just picked it up, on my own. And I went exactly like you said to escape what was going on in the home. And I played and it was soothing. And then my dad had keys to the church because he was always in some church band. So he would open up and let me go in there and it was like private and I would just play and tinker around as a kid and developed some skill over time with it and then stopped when I moved out of my house.
Mm-hmm.
And then went years and years, never touched a piano, maybe a little bit here and there, but never touched it. Never really knew why I never went back to it or developed it further, right? Always loved it. Always loved piano music, right?
Yeah.
But never knew why I went back. And then you've just explained it. And I actually identified it. I actually realized I'm like, man, I just don't want the memory of what I was running from using the piano and I'm taking out on the piano, right? And then I started playing again, kind of reset my mind with it, like you're talking about, where I changed the memory, changed the feeling, and got back in for a good period of time. And then fast forward, COVID hits, lockdowns. 2 weeks after lockdowns are declared, my mother passes away. And she was a big source of a lot of shit going on in my past. God love her, but that's just the truth. And then I used the piano to help me get through both of those traumas, the lockdown stuff, all the insanity, and I had young kids right at the time. So it was even hard. And then my mother passing. So I'm in the piano using that as therapy. And it happened again after the lockdown, after that period of time,
Mm-hmm.
I stopped completely. No more piano, just work, work, work all the time. And then didn't know why.